Good morning, everyone. My name is Jessica Sibirski. I am the Lead and Copper Rule and Lead and Copper Rule Revisions Coordinator working on the Boston office. Today, we have with us your LCR regional office contacts and Andrew Duran and Tio Llano from the Boston office. We will start by giving you a background about last year EPA's National Enforcement and Compliance Initiative and the updates that we did to the Lead and Copper Rule forms. The focus today will be on the sampling plan and the sampling change form, and we will also be mentioning the available funding for the service line inventories that are due October 16 of next year. Please remember that in order to get TCHs, you will need to answer the evaluation form that will appear at the end of this presentation. And you will also need to answer 2 poll questions that will be launching during the training. Thank you all in advance for attending. And also, I would like to say this webinar is being recorded. Let's start with the National Enforcement and Compliance Initiative inspections. But first, please fill out the first poll question. So it's gonna be launching now. If by any chance you cannot answer the poll question, you can put it in the chat. The question is, are you part of a community public water system, an NTNC, a contractor or consulting firm, or a state and federal representative, or other? By the end of the presentation, we will be taking questions, but please, if you have any question during the presentation, just type it in the chat. Okay. See people still answering. Okay, I'm gonna end the poll now. But the results seems like the majority are part of a community water system. So EPA's National Enforcement and Compliance Initiative inspections actually promotes greater compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act, and one of the goals is to ensure clean and safe water by improving compliance at communities' water systems. Last year, EPA selected the Lead and Copper Rule program for compliance evaluation, and in Massachusetts, they inspected 12 community water systems serving more than 10,000 in population to assess the system's compliance with the Lead and Copper Rule and other applicable regulations, including Massachusetts drinking water regulations. Some of the information that was reviewed during the inspection were the existing material surveys that were used to create the lead and copper monitoring sampling pools. They also check at the LCR structure tiering worksheets. They look into the approval sampling plans for the last 3 years. They look into the sampling results. They also review the chain of custody forms, the tap sampling instructions that were provided to customers, the 90th percentile calculations, the consumer notice of monitoring results. These all were for the last 3 years. The CCRs, the public education notices and certifications, and The grid and SOPs, they are used by your system to administer the lead and copper rule program and lead service line replacement reports. This one was for the last two reports that they were looking into. And as a result of this EPA's inspection, some lead and copper rule violations were identified, and this resulted in enforcement. So the violations that were identified were the failure to sample sites that meet the required tier classification of the lead and copper rule. This means the PWS might not have sampled the required number of sites. Failure to follow chain of custody requirements when sampling for lead and copper. Failure to maintain updated materials evaluation. Failure to maintain documentation, the consumer tab notification was provided to consumers. Failure to properly provide and maintain documentation of consumer notice to the participants, and failure to include on the CCR information on the number of sample sites that exceeded the action level. Based on these violations, we work to identify the lessons learned and develop updates to our current LCR program. This year, EPA is also doing these inspections. 2 systems were already notified, so this is ongoing. So it was really important for us, and it will be really helpful for you to, going forward, just work with us to prevent this type of violations happening. So first, all lead and copper rule forms were reviewed to update broken links and to include the contact information for the regional staff. We had some members that retired and some new members that needed to be included in the forms. Second, we work on the LCR sampling plan in the change form. We'll be talking about this in detail next. And third, we added a date field to the lead and copper rule homeowners notification results because the previous form didn't have a field date for when the homeowners were being notified of the sample results. And last, all certification forms for consumer notice, public notices, and public education were reviewed and updated to remind you that all records are required to be maintained for 12 years. So why to update the lead and copper rule sampling plan and the change form? The first, it was to minimize data errors. A big portion of the previous sampling plans were updated manually, which sometimes led to mistakes due to handwriting errors, or it was just too hard to read some of the addresses, for example, or names, depending on the handwriting, the person that was writing this. So the problem was not only a problem for us that we were doing data entry, but for some water systems too, because of the staff turnover, a new operator would come and couldn't really read properly while it was in the sampling plan. So the new form will be filled out electronically using Microsoft Word. This will help us to do the data entry accurately. The second, we are updating this form because there was a need to ensure that the materials of the sample locations listed in the sampling plans are accurate. The new verification field in the new form will allow us, allow you and us to do
What's
this.
up?
All
How'd you
sites,
do?
sorry.
You got a class?
All sites that are part of the sampling plan should identify the material, so they need to be verified. The verification methods are listed in the form, and these are the same verification methods that were included in the service line inventory spreadsheet for the lead and copper rule revisions. Primary sites have to be verified. A public water system may select no verified as an option, However, based on the lessons that we learned from the last EPA's inspections, primary sites have to be verified. And the new form also will allow us to track all the changes in one document instead of two. So instead of having the previous sampling plan and the change form, two different forms, now we're just gonna have one. All these changes will help us to prepare for the upcoming lead and copper rule revisions. So the key highlights of the forms are the verification of all sampling sites, primary, alternate locations will have this field. And please note that the section where you will list all schools and early education and care facilities doesn't have any verification fields because it is not needed. And the form will help you to ensure that you are sampling the highest tier sites. Each sampling site is associated with a location code. The location codes are used to do data entry on our part and to track changes and results, which will help us to reduce the entry errors. Another important highlight is that the form will be pre-populated with your current sampling plan. When a public water system will need to modify the current sampling plan, the system will need to contact the regional office to get the pre-populated form. So this form is called, the new form is called LCR-LOC-MOD. Once the public water system makes this request, it will receive the form with the current information that is on file and the current sampling plan that we will have on file for you. You will modify, and we will show you in a video that we're going to be playing today how to do this step by step. So here is the process. Starting Q4 of this year, the public water system will request the regional office for the sampling plan form. The public water system then will receive the pre-populated form. You will update this form and will submit it to MassDEP through email. And after submission, MassDEP will review the form for approval. If the form by any chance is rejected, then your regional office will contact you for clarification and for the steps to resubmit this form. Once the form is approved, MassDEP will perform the data entry in WQTS, and then it will generate the sampling plans that usually show up on our website for you. This is password protected. So we will be talking more in details about this whole process. So now let's see how to do this whole process step by step. I'm gonna be playing the video right now. One second.
Welcome to the MassDEP sponsored video on how to fill out the lead and copper sampling locations modification/approval request form. This video will take you through how to fill out sections 1 through 10 and let you know what to avoid when completing this form. Before we start, here are a few general tips for this form. To fill out this form, it must be filled out using Microsoft Word. Do not print this form out and fill it out by hand or use another application. This form has been created with Microsoft Word in mind and streamlined for the easiest use in Word. Each section has been created so you can type in the information that needs to be modified or approved in an organized manner. If you do not have access to Microsoft Word, please contact MassDEP's Drinking Water Program via email at program.director-dwp@mass.gov. When your form is completed, the form should remain in Word format. Do not print this form out or convert it to a PDF when sending it to MassDEP. To guide you through how to fill out this form, we will be using Malden Water Division as an example. The changes here are being made using test data. These changes are not representative of Malden Water Division's true data. Section 1. Section 1 is for public water supplier information. This section contains information like the public water system name, PWS ID, town, and so on. Do not make changes to the information that has been filled out for you. Although the current approved plan and current plan approval date form fields are unlocked, you should not modify these two fields. If the information in any of the form fields in this section is inaccurate, contact your regional office. Section 2. Section 2 is for when you are using the form to request a change. In this section, you will select the reason or reasons for submitting this form. You may select more than one reason. The options are changing sites in my existing plan, switching from standard to reduced, switching from reduced to standard, and switching from annual to triannual. Just click on the box or boxes that apply to you, and an X will appear in the box. Section 3. Section 3 is to certify if your public water system has no lead service lines. Read the certification statement in Section 3, and if this is applicable to you, click the box and the X should appear. If you do not have any lead service lines in your distribution system, then you will need to complete the LCR-LOC-MOD form, which is available on our website at www.mass.gov/media/2576086/. Section 4. Section 4 is to correct or remove any currently approved primary sampling locations that MassDEP has on file. First, confirm that all listed sites are accurate. All information in the first 5 columns, which are under the Current Location Information heading, are from MassDEP's data systems and are not editable. If any of this information is inaccurate, we will be using the form fields in the right-hand columns, under Correction/Change. Here are a few examples of how to fill out this section. If the current location, 123 Main Street, is no longer used as a sampling location for Malden, we will click on the box for this row under Delete this location. If 345 South Street is now an alternate site and no longer a primary site, I will click on the box under Change to Alternate Location for this row and see the X appear. When I reviewed this section to check for any typos or any mistakes, I see that there is a typo in location LC004. This location name is correct, but the address has a typo. The zip code, according to this, is 92148. This should be 02148. To correct this, I will go over to the corrected address name column, go to the correct row, and type in the address without mistakes. 123A, 3rd Street, Malden, Massachusetts, 02148. There is also a typo for the address 23 Lake Street, which is misspelled. For this one, I will go over to Corrected Location Name and type in 23 Lake Street to fix that. Some other corrections you can do in this section is to change how you would like the location names presented. For example, in this dataset, we have some locations with street spelled out and some with the abbreviation ST. If you would like to adjust some location names to an abbreviation of street, avenue, or drive, or to be the full spelling, you can do that here as well. Just type the correct spelling with the correct abbreviation or full spelling of the street suffix in the corrected location name column. For all sites, except for schools and early education and care facilities, EECFs, which are covered in Section 8 and 9, we need to add the verification method for these locations. To do this, go to the column that says Verification Method. Under this heading, the column has each row with the word Select. We are going to click on that word, and a drop-down list of options should show up similar to mine here. Click the method that is accurate for each location. If any locations have not been verified, click Not Verified at the bottom of the list. For our example, we will say that 345 South Street, the second location on our list, was verified via field inspection. But our next location on 4567 Broadway was verified by a record review. Continue with your verification methods for the rest of your locations. You should also include the corrected tier and class, if this data is not correct. To do this, go to the second column of the table and review the included tiers and classes. For our example, 2 locations do not have the completed tier and class. The rest are correct. To update these 2 rows, we will go over to the third to last column, corrected tier and class, and update this data. For the first row, this tier and class will be corrected to 1A. The other mistake, LC-010, should be another 2C location, so I will also correct that. Explanations of each tier and class and verification methods can be found on the last 2 pages. Refer to these tables when filling out the tier and class and verification method information in sections 4 through 6. At the bottom of this section, there is an area for your explanation. If you have made any corrections or changes to section 4 in the table above, type your explanation in this text box. Section 5. Section 5 is for you to enter in any new primary locations that need to be approved. Before adding in any new information, if you do need to add multiple new locations, what we can do is click in one of these gray areas where we usually add text in the row and look to the right-hand side of the table. You should see a small box with the blue plus sign in it. Click on this box and a new row will appear. If you need multiple new rows, bring the cursor back to the corner and continue to click on the plus sign until you have enough rows. If you accidentally create too many rows, you do not have to delete the unused rows. We recommend you do this before adding in new information, as when you add in information and then click the plus sign, it will duplicate the information you have added. So for our example of Malden, let's say we have a Tier 1 Class A location we need approved. First, I will select 1A for tier and class, and then I will move to the next column, verification method. We verified this via a field inspection. For the location name, the location is 10 Smith Road. For the location address, this is 10 Smith Road, Malden, Massachusetts, 02148. Section 6. This section is for any corrections or removals of approved alternate sampling locations. This section is very similar to Section 4, which was for primary sampling locations. For our examples for this section, alternate 899 Spring Street in our example is no longer a location we use. So I will click on the box under Delete this location to request for the removal of that location. Under that location is alternate 932 Colonial Drive, which we are changing to a primary location. To do this, under the Change to Primary Location column, I will click on the box in the correct row to request this location to be changed to a primary location. For any mistakes or misspellings, we have 2 in this section. First, 4526 Cedar Avenue is not spelt correctly. The location name is missing the E in Cedar. For this, we will head over to the corrected location name column and type in 4526 Cedar Ave. Second, the 1 Hilltop Road alternate location has a mistake in its location name. The location name says it is alternate 111 Hilltop Road when it is actually alternate 1 Hilltop Road. To fix this, we will again head over to the corrected location name column and type in the correct location name. For all locations, we will need to add the verification method. To do this, go to the column that says verification method. Under this heading, the column has each row with the word select. We are going to click on that word and a drop-down list of options should show up, similar to mine here. Click the method that is accurate for each location. We will also check the tier and class section to make sure it is correct. In this section, all of the tiers and classes are correct, so we will not need to add any corrections to this section. Again, similar to what we did in Section 4, there is a text box at the bottom of this section. If you changed or corrected any information in the table above, type up an explanation for those corrections and changes here. Section 7. Section 7 is similar to Section 5, but instead of primary locations, we will be adding any new alternate sampling locations here. If you need to add multiple new locations, click on one of these gray areas and look to the right-hand side of the table. You should see the small box with a blue plus sign in it. Click on this box and a new row will appear. Add as many rows as needed. For our example of Malden, let's say we have a Tier 1 Class B location that we need approved. First, I will select 1B for tier and class. Then I will move to the next column, Verification Method. We verified this via Records Review. For the location name, the location is alternate 30 Rockland Street. For the location address, this is 30 Rockland Street, Malden, Massachusetts, 02148. Section 8. For Section 8, this is where we will add any corrections or removals of schools or EECFs. If your public water system does not serve any schools or does not serve any EECFs, you can click on these two boxes here to have an X appear, marking these as true. If these do not apply to your system, leave them blank. Look over the current school and EECF information listed and verify that it is correct. You can confirm that these locations have not changed by visiting the website childcare.mass.gov/findchildcare to make sure no new facilities have been added. For this example, we have 2 schools and 2 EECFs. Your list may be longer or shorter depending on how many schools and EECFs your system has. If there are any facilities that are no longer operating as a school or EECF, click on the correct box for that location under Delete this facility. If there are any locations that are recorded inaccurately, go to the corrected school/EECF name and corrected street address columns and fill in the correct information in the appropriate box, like we did for the previous sections. For this section, there is one school address that has a mistake in it. Looking at the first row, SCH1, the address includes the zip code 62148. This is not correct. To correct this data, we will go to the corrected street address column and in the correct row, type in the correct address. 892 Woodland Drive, Malden, Massachusetts, 02148. There is also a school with a mistake in the school name in row 2. To correct this data, we will go to the corrected school/EECF name column and type in the correct school name, XYZ Middle School. Section 9. Section 9 is our continuation of the modifications to school and EECFs. If there are any schools or EECFs, including family child care facilities, that do not appear in Section 8, add them here in Section 9. When adding in new schools or EECFs, we select the type, which will either be school or EECF. We will then type in the school's name. In our example, it can be Malden Middle School. And then we will type in the street address. For our example, this will be 210 Gerald Way, Malden, Massachusetts, 02148. Section 10. Our last section for you to fill out is Section 10. Before filling out this section, read the fine print right below certification. After you have read that, we can fill out this section. In the first form field above your full name, type your full name. Next to this form field, type your job title. After this, go to the next form field, which should be your email address. Make sure to type in the email address belonging to the individual identified in the field labeled your full name. This form must be submitted using the email address identified in this field. Next, type in your phone number and the date when you are completing this form. If there is any information underneath the area titled Your System's Primary Certified Operators that is incorrect, please contact your regional MassDEP office. These form fields are not editable and provided for reference purposes only. These areas include the primary distribution operator and their name, email address, and license numbers and grades, as well as the primary treatment operator, if applicable to your system, and their name, email address, and license numbers and grades. You have completed all the sections that you need to complete. Section 11 is for MassDEP use only. Do not fill out this section. Now that you have filled out the form and double-checked everything to make sure it is filled in correctly, submit this form as a Word document to program.director-dwp@mass.gov from the email you listed in Section 10. If you email this document from a different email address, it will not be accepted. MassDEP will review the form and respond within a determination of 2 to 3 weeks. We hope this guide was helpful. If you have any questions that were not answered in this guide or in the instructions included with the modification/approval request form, contact us at program.director-dwp@mass.gov or at 617-292-5770. Welcome to the Mass.
Okay, everyone, we're gonna continue here. Let me just try to get out of this slide. Okay, now that we saw the video, let's pause and do another poll. For those of you who maybe are not seeing the poll questions, the question is, the new LCR-LOC-MOD form will be posted online. Is it true or false? The PWS will need to request it from the regional office. Okay, people still answering. Okay, so it seems like 66% answer that is false. The PWS will need to request it from the regions, but still at 41% answer that is true. So let's clarify this. The form cannot be posted online because the form needs to be pre-populated with your current sampling plan, that it will be on our files. For this reason, the form is not going to be posted online. The public water system will need to request it from the regional offices. It is really important to start the process of reviewing and updating your sampling plan ahead of time, because reviewing your sampling plan for approval and then the data entry that it will take place after approval, it takes time. So please do not leave these kind of submissions for the last minute. I am going to end this poll now, and I'm gonna just share the results so you can see. So again, the form is not gonna be posted online. The form will need, the public water system will need to request it from the regional office. We are going to be answering the questions at the end of the presentation. Let's continue. Now let's talk a little bit about the lead and copper rule revisions, service line inventories. Remember that all systems subject to the lead and copper rule revisions need to submit a service line inventory by October 16, 2024. We are encouraging systems to develop and submit this inventory prior to the deadline, if possible by April 1st of next year. So this will give us time to review and offer you any technical assistance in case it's gonna be needed. We would also like to take this opportunity to briefly mention that systems without lead service line still need to submit the initial inventory. If a public water system can demonstrate and certify that it has no lead service line, no galvanized requiring replacement, and no service line of unknown material, the public water system will not be required to make the inventory publicly accessible online and will not be required to provide routine inventory updates to the state or to the public. However, the public water system will still need to be required to post a statement declaring that it have no lead service line, galvanized requiring replacement, or unknown service lines. And this statement have to contain explaining the sources used to make this determination. Systems that serve more than 50,000 people must post a statement online, and the statement must be included in the CCRs for all systems required to provide CCR. If in the future a public water system finds a lead service line or galvanized requiring replacement within its distribution systems, the public water system have to notify MassDEP within 30 days of discovery and submit an updated inventory on a schedule established by MassDEP. This is one of the most frequent questions we're getting from you and from the consultants. So based on this, we developed the certification form for this type of system. The form is posted online. You receive a letter, I believe was last week or 2 weeks ago. They have all the links to these new forms. So this is the certification form. In order for you to use the certification form, you will need to have to develop your service line inventory in accordance with the lead and copper rule revisions. Please also remember that we have some tools to help you to develop the service line inventory. The first one is the Excel workbook that contains all the required fields for the inventory. This workbook will help you classify automatically the entire service line into one of the LCR categories using the information that you will input. And it will also help you to classify the locations that will be part of the sampling plan into one of the LCR tiers. The second tool is the service line crowdsourcing application. This tool was developed by Tio Llano. This tool will allow your customers to take a picture of the service line and upload it for you along with their information. This is one of the verification methods that is accepted in Massachusetts. So this can help you to expedite and prioritize your efforts on identifying lead service line. This is also posted on our website. Now for funding opportunities, we have the SRF Lead Service Line Planning Program grant. the SRF is currently accepting grant applications for planning activities that assist you to complete lead service line inventories and to develop lead service line replacement program. It is recommended that you apply as soon as possible to this funding because it will be provided at a first come, first served basis. This grant program replaces the 100% principal forgiveness loan program. Therefore, it is eliminating the required to obtain local authorization to borrow. It's now a grant program. And the second opportunity is the planning technical assistance for small communities less than 10,000 and NTNCs using 1.3 million of the set aside from the SRF lead service line grant to contract with a qualified technical assistance provider to work with the small public water systems to complete the service line inventory and the lead service line replacement plans. This program is being finalized and it's gonna be launched in the upcoming weeks. So just stay tuned for it. So nothing more. Now let's answer the questions. So we'll need to go in the chat and see.
I can read off the questions to you if you'd like, Jessica.
Yes, dear, please.
Okay. So the first question is, who can I contact to have the LCR password reset on the MassDEP website? I answered this question already. So I believe that Keith is referring to the approved sampling sites plan, which is a different form. Well, it's a different document than the form that we presented today. I'm going to throw the URL into the chat. So this is what Keith is referring to. So this is the approved sampling sites plan, which you can download off of our website for your PWS. The approved sampling sites plan is actually produced later in the process. So what would happen is you would submit the form that we talked about today, the LCR location modification form. Once we receive that, we'll do the data. We'll review it, approve it, and then we'll do the data entry. And once the data entry is completed, what we do is we produce this approved sampling sites plan. And then that document will get posted onto the website. So that's the document that Keith is referring to. It is password protected. If you contact me directly at, here, I'll throw my email in the chat as well. If you contact me, I can provide the password to you and also explain how we assign the password to the PDF to unlock it. Okay. So the next question is from Marlene. What is the link? I'm not sure which document you're referring to. The link to, so the form that we presented today, that one is not going to be up on our website because it needs to be pre-populated with data out of our data system. So what needs to happen is you contact us, well, you'll contact your regional office saying that you need to make changes to your locations. They'll produce a populated form for you and email that back to you. If you're referring to the approved sampling sites plan form, that one is in the link that I just posted in the chat. The next question from Tom Cutler, new forms must be used Q4, use old forms Q2 and 3. So Jessica, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, so the form needs to be starting to be used on Q4. However, if your system would like to use this form right now, just contact your regional office. It will be sort of more like a pilot, but starting Q4, all systems should use the new LCR-LOC-MOD form.
Okay, the next question is, where is this video available? So I believe Ben Patton posted a link to the YouTube video for the video that was presented today. We'll also make the presentation that we're doing today available on our YouTube channel as well. And we'll email you that link later on. The next question is verification method required to be entered for locations for which a request is being made to delete it from the plan?
So if it's gonna be deleted out of the plan, I'll believe the verification method it's not gonna be required unless you're planning to put this back at some point. So if the sampling location will be used again, then you will need to verify.
Okay. The next question is, do we need to submit a statement online if we serve less than 50,000?
So you mean, do we need to submit a statement online? So
I believe,
yeah,
I believe he's referring to the no lead service line statement.
Oh, okay. So you still need to have the statement available to your customers, but no, the requirement is for systems that are over 50,000.
Okay. The next question is, if the inventory is to be completed by October 2024, the statement needs to be in the CCR in 2025 for 24.
And that question, I am not really sure about it. I don't know if that is Damon or Yvette here.
This is Yvette. It's normally the reporting year would be the following period for the CCR, but what we
I think we've lost Yvette's audio.
Yeah.
So since the October 24 deadline is for your inventories, I think there's been discussions at EPA about reporting compliance for that in January of 25. So I assume that the compliance with that would not be reported until the actual 2026 CCR reporting period for 2025. So yeah, that more on that will be coming, but that's related to the inventory that is required to be provided by 2024.
Okay. The next question is, what is the deadline for submitting a modification form?
So for submitting the sampling plan LCR-LOC-MOD form, so you actually have until the end of your monitoring period. We do not recommend you to do that because, again, this process takes time. We'll need to review it, and there is some data entry that we will have to perform in our site. So it will take at least 2 to 3 weeks to do it. So we recommend you to do it as soon as possible.
Okay, the next question is, does MassDEP provide information about its YouTube videos on its website? We don't provide information about the YouTube videos on our website. I'm going to post the link to the MassDEP YouTube channel in the chat. Give me 1 second here. So this is where you can find all of our videos. This includes other bureaus and programs as well. There is a subsection called drinking water training where you can find all the drinking water videos. The next question is, what was the form for systems that know they don't have lead service lines?
It is the certification form for systems without lead service lines. It is posted on our LCRR webpage, as well as template of a statement for the systems that do not have, that can certify that they don't have any lead service line galvanized requirement replacement or unknowns. So
I'm
maybe
gonna,
Theo, can you look for
yeah,
that?
yeah, I'm gonna post the link in the chat right now. So this is where you can find all the forms for LCR as well as LCRR. And then,
So I just want to, stress that if you're going to use the certification form that you do not have any lead service lines, you still are required to submit an initial service line inventory by October of 2024. So we are expecting, we do require that a initial service line inventory is submitted, but then going forward, you will not have to do updates to that inventory if you certify that there are no lead service lines.
so Tyler had a follow-up comment regarding his question. Just to clarify, I have lead and copper samples in Q3 next quarter, so I do not need to complete the approved sampling sites form before this. Is that correct? Meaning I complete the modification form by Q4 for lead and copper samples in the future.
So that is correct. You should be using the modification form when it's gonna be your monitoring period starting Q4. So it's not like we're expecting everyone to just review their sampling plan starting Q4. No. Whenever it's gonna be whenever your monitoring period is, then you will start the process of using the new form.
So there was a question about the approved sampling sites plan, which is on our website. So, which is the form I was talking about earlier, which isn't the form that we presented on today. So the question has to do with whether or not the passwords for those forms will be removed, I believe. I think that's what is being asked. So unfortunately we have to keep the passwords on those approved sampling sites forms because it contains homeowner addresses, and that's the only reason why we password protect those. So unfortunately we're not going to be able to remove the passwords on those. And I believe that's it for questions.
Okay, so does anyone else have any other question?
Here's another question. Can you email out one email with all the links to better infuse the process in our operations?
Yes, I'll do that as a follow-up email. Also, you can unmute yourself now if you don't want to put the questions in the chat.
I think this is a good opportunity to remind folks to read the In the Main newsletter, because all of this, the links to all of the training and our Q&As will be in your In the Main newsletter. There's one coming out on Friday.
And if you're not receiving the In the Main newsletter, you can email program.director. I'll put it in the chat right now. So if you send an email to this email address, we'll add you to the list so that you can get in the main newsletter.
Are
Here's
there
another
any other
question. Yep.
questions?
When predictive modeling is used, can it only be used to classify something as lead? If something is predicted as 5% likelihood lead, can you say it's non-lead, or does it remain unknown in the inventory?
Andrew, do you want to chime in this question? We are still developing our guidance on the predictive modeling. Is this question is only asking just to use predictive modeling to classify it as non-lead, no any other verification method?
I guess this is a good new question for our program in this sense. Because we just assumed that predictive modelings would give us a essentially most likely lead or not lead answer, that we wouldn't be getting percentages of confidence back. So I think we need to investigate this further, but yeah, I don't know how to answer that directly right now, and we'll have to come back with some guidance and probably put it into one of our future in the main articles or something. That you know, predictive modeling is not one of the highest verification methods, and it's essentially a stopgap until the water supplier can get out and verify it in a more confident manner, either in-person verification, some of the sampling methods or that. So we'll get back to you with an answer on how to interpret the predictive modeling results.
I think now's a good time to mention how we handle all questions that come in. So the questions that have come in today, if we need to do an answer, we are going to add it to our Q&As. So we will repeat the question and we will provide the answers. And we encourage everyone to send questions to us at the P-Director address. And what we do is we develop responses, we check them with EPA, and then we publish them in the Q&As. So it's very important that you keep asking your questions, and we will continue to answer them and publish them in our Q&As, as well as respond to the person who asked the question. We just want to make sure that everyone sees the same answer, as well as the person who asked the original question.
So we have another question. Is all galvanized service line considered lead service line?
No, galvanized requiring replacement will trigger some parts of the lead and copper rule revisions. Not all galvanized. Galvanized requiring replacement will trigger, for example, they will have to be counted in the lead service line replacement plans.
And galvanized requiring replacement is classified as galvanized service lines that are downstream or have ever been downstream of identified lead components. The reason for that is that the galvanized coatings collect lead and release lead after it's been downstream of a lead service line or component.
There's another question. I believe you answered this in response to Tyler's post, but we have a reduced sampling plan approved in October 2022 to sample annually for the next 3 years. We'll be sampling on June 19th for the June 1st to September 30th sampling period. Which new and or updated forms will be required to be used in this sampling round?
So if the system needs to do a modification to their sampling plan, to the current approved sampling plan, then it will need to start using the modification form that we were talking about it. June
Okay.
19th.
I don't see any other questions in the chat. Okay, here's another one. I thought galvanized requiring replacement was classified as galvanized material downstream of a lead service line or unknown material, not downstream of lead components. Being downstream of a lead gooseneck does not make a galvanized requiring replacement.
Sorry, I'll need to read the
Sure.
question again. I got some distraction here. I thought galvanized requirement replacement was classified as galvanized material downstream of a lead service line or unknown material, not downstream. Yeah, correct. Being downstream of a gooseneck does not make a galvanized requiring replacement. The goosenecks in the rule so far, they only count for when you're classifying the tier for the sample point locations. Okay.
So are there
saying,
more questions or?
yes, one more came. My PWS ID is not included in the drop-down list. What do I need to do to have it included?
Marlene, if you email me directly, I can troubleshoot that for you. Here's another question. If you're on a reduced monitoring program, will you remain on a reduced program after the lead service line is submitted with unknown? After I believe the inventory is submitted with unknowns.
So we asked this question to EPA for your system to stay in a reduced monitoring after the lead and copper revisions are gonna be effective. Your system will have to comply with certain criteria, meaning your system doesn't have any lead service line, galvanized requirement, replacement, or unknowns. And then we created a whole flow chart that we can share with everyone, that it will tell you exactly if your system qualified with all the criteria, then it can stay in reduced monitoring. So I will be sharing that flow chart again with when I'm gonna be sending the links to everyone as a follow-up. Okay. Then no more questions. Thank you very much, everyone, for joining us. I don't know, Yvette, Tio, Andrew, anyone will have anything else to say?
Just thank you for being here and continue to send your questions to us, and we will be responding. Reach out to your regional contacts as well if you need to, and thank you.
Please remember to fill out the evaluation